All righty. Welcome, everybody. You are in the right place if you're looking for the Marine Mammal Center's life-saving laws, acts, and actions for sea otters. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you're as excited as I am. Marine mammals are amazing, and sea otters are my very favorite of them. So if you're in the right place if you're looking for our live today on life-saving laws, acts, and actions for sea otters. We are joined by some very special guests. We have Heather Barrett later that's going to do some introductions all about this amazing week of sea otter activities, which is known as Sea Otter Awareness Week from Sea Otter Savvy, one of our amazing partners. And we're going to be asking Dr. Cara Field, our head vet here at the Marine Mammal Center, all about these life-saving laws for our sea otters in particular. So very excited to dive into this with you all today. I hope you're as excited as I am. Feel free to put in the chat a little hello, where you're tuning in from. We always like to see where people are coming in from. So thank you again so much for being with us here today. As we dive into some Sea Otter Awareness Week, this is day 2. So thank you for celebrating with us. I hope you took some time yesterday to celebrate as well. And if not, there's plenty on the Defenders of Wildlife website all about great ways that you can celebrate our sea otters during this fabulous week, my favorite one of the year. Now, as we're all just getting settled in, thank you all again for saying hello. So nice to see you all. Thanks for joining us as we explore some of the acts and laws when it comes to what's helped our sea otters and where we can continue to grow. So in just a moment here, we'll go ahead and get started just to give a little bit of time for some more folks to join in. But thank you all so much for being here. You can enjoy already on our screen. We have some cute otter pictures, and don't worry, this only gets even more otterly adorable from here with some pictures and videos coming your way as we explore the great ways that we can take action to help sea otters. Oh, and I wanted to say a great big hello to Kat from Pasadena and Lee from Washington, D.C. Oh, so exciting to get to see where some of our folks are coming in from. Thank you again for joining us today as we explore some of those life-saving laws for our marine mammals, and in particular, our incredible, fabulously furry sea otters. Now, I think I'll go ahead and pass it over so we can get started. And this is where we have the fabulous Heather Barrett coming in from Sea Otter Savvy, truly our cheerleaders when it comes to working with otters and thinking about how wonderful they are and how incredible they are. So I'll pass it over to Heather to give us a little bit of an intro here.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here yet again. I love this partnership and I love joining you guys on this live stream each time. But it is Happy Sea Otter Awareness Week. It's day 2. Now, Sea Otter Awareness Week occurs every year during the last full week of September. So you can actually go to your calendar right now and add it for next year, and you'll already know what it's going to be. And it is organized in partnership with Sea Otter Savvy, Defenders of Wildlife, California State Parks, the Laka Alliance, the Monterey Bay Cram, and the Marine Mammal Center. And we want to thank all of the collaborators as well as the different community members that join us in spreading awareness. This year marks the 23rd year, and the theme is Anchored in Hope. So by providing a metaphor for optimism, stability, and security in a challenging world. And so you can go grab your swag so that way you can help spread the awareness that way too. This was a really fun logo. I made this one this year as well, and it was really fun to make. And so I just really love emphasizing that connection between sea otters and kelp, and that that hope is anchored between the two of them. So that's really exciting. I also want to highlight that this week also features a lot of Sea Otter Savvy's Sea Otter Recovery and Community Engagement Program events. And that's highlighted by our We Were Here Sea Otter artwork, which educates communities and stakeholders who are missing sea otters. And we offer a survey for community involvement. So the Southern Sea Otter Range is currently from Gaviota State Park to the south to Año Nuevo State Park in the north. Sea otters did once inhabit all along the Pacific coast, and they're ecologically and culturally significant. And there's increasing discussion regarding possible reintroduction to historical habitats. So to move forward, government agencies and the Sea Otter research community, we need to engage communities and stakeholders to hear their perspectives, like from you. So if you are interested in Sea Otter recovery, please take the Sea Otter survey and share your thoughts. Your voice matters. The links and website and all the survey information will be made available to you at the end. And I think there's even a QR code that's going to pop up. So, but with that, I just want to say thank you guys for joining us. Check out all the other events for this week, and I will see you guys later. But have a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather, for really kicking us off today as we are really taking part of this series of events happening for Sea Otter Awareness Week. I am so excited to be here today to talk about probably the cutest, but definitely the smallest of the marine mammals, and my very favorite are southern sea otters. Now, we're going to leave some time at the end of our presentation for questions, but if you want to put them in the comment section as they come up, feel free to put them in there and we'll see how many we can answer at the end. Now, today we're in for a really special treat. I am joined by the Center's Director of Conservation Medicine, Dr. Cara Field. So I'll turn it over to her to introduce herself.
Hey, thanks so much. And hello, everybody. Welcome. It's my pleasure to be here with you all today. And so nice to see all the folks that are chiming in to listen in. So my name is Dr. Cara Field, and I am the Director of Conservation Medicine. And you're kind of wondering, like, what does that mean exactly? Well, I've been a veterinarian for 20 years. And within that, I also have been a big part of not just research and understanding more about medicine and health, but really branching out into conservation medicine, which is the link between human and animal and ecosystem health. And so it's looking not just at, our individual selves and our individual animals, but really how the environment and how all of these other things shape the health of our animals. And this is especially relevant and important for wildlife because they're just subject to so many different things that we humans and the world has to kind of throw at them. So it's something that we all do actually at the center. We all are part of conservation medicine because we all care not just about the individual animals, but and why they come to our hospital. But what does that mean? What is that saying about the bigger picture, about the ocean and its state of health, and how we humans also both impact it and what happens to our health as well? So it's a really broad subject, and it's a distinct pleasure to be able to do that for my career.
Thank you so much for that introduction to your work here and with our otters. We're really, really excited to have you joining us today. Here at the center, we're actually celebrating our 50th anniversary, and we've been really privileged to get to be working with these otters. But even before our founding, there were laws that were passed in order to protect these marine mammals like otters. Can you tell us a little bit about those laws that were passed in the 70s?
Absolutely. And it is incredible to be, again, a part of such a amazing part of history that really looked at how humans had impacted many marine mammal populations throughout the 50s and the 60s, especially. So in 1972, probably before many of you were born, and some of you probably listening and remember this, in 1972, there was a groundbreaking law called the Marine Mammal Protection Act, or MMPA. And this act recognized that the hunting and taking of marine mammals, the harm, the injury, and whether the killing was intentional or inadvertent, was causing a real problem, not just for these animals as individuals because of the suffering that went along with that sometimes, but the populations were becoming more and more endangered, threatened, and some even went extinct. So because of this incredible law, and it was not political. It was everybody who was interested in saving these animals and protecting them from some of the effects, especially the not purposeful effects of a lot of human activities, plus other things, of course, too. So since that, this has been an incredible success story, really. So no additional species have gone extinct since the Marine Mammal Protection Act was enacted in the US in 1972. And that is really saying something. However, there are still some marine mammal species that are really struggling. So we're not done. And then the following year in 1973, the Endangered Species Act was put into place. And this act recognized that it's not just marine mammals. There are many, many species of animals and plants and so forth that were in danger of being lost forever. And because of their really unique and important existence in the world as we know it, and our desire to want to save them for future generations, this law also came into play. So again, it was one of those amazing periods of time where politics was really set aside, and it was really the nature of the importance of these animals, plants, and the environment was at everybody's forefront of their minds.
That is incredible. And as I understand it, under the Endangered Species Act, animals or plants can be listed as either threatened or endangered. Can you describe what that means a little bit more and talk about any animals that we might care for that fall under those classifications?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, the subject of our our talk today is one of those. But so sea otters are certainly a big part of that because they were hunted nearly into extinction because their fur, that beautiful fur that you can see, I think, in the picture there, it is very, very lush. It's actually the most dense fur. The furriest animals on the face of the earth are sea otters. And so we humans, well, we really liked that. And, when we depended on animal fur to keep warm, they were very, very highly prized for that. Unfortunately, we had a habit of taking more than was sustainable. And so this species almost went extinct in the lower part throughout the United States. And thanks to this Endangered Species Act and Marine Mammal Protection Act, the otters were afforded this protection. And since then, some of the different sea otter populations have improved since then, which is great, but not all of them. And sea otters are certainly still at high risk because the population is not continuing to grow. I should say for southern sea otters. Our northern or Alaskan sea otters are doing much better, fortunately. Another species that's been affected, polar bears, for example, and that's because we recognize that the ice, the Arctic ice, the sea ice that they depend upon for food, for rest, for reproduction, to raise their cubs, was disappearing very quickly. So there's a lot of different examples of species, marine mammals and not marine mammals, like the California condor, that were really heavily impacted, that have since done better with these protections.
That is incredible to hear. I also have, a little inkling that we have another marine mammal that is one of my other favorites. I never get to see them though, because they're all the way out in Hawaii that might
Yeah.
also really benefit from some of these protections. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about how this can help with our Hawaiian monk seal population?
Absolutely. So the Hawaiian monk seals are one of the most endangered species of seals or sea lions in the entire world, and the most endangered species of seal within the United States. And you can see two of our little patients at our hospital on the big island of Hawaii. So these seals are native only to the Hawaiian Islands. There used to be another species of monk seal called the Caribbean monk seal, and unfortunately that seal went extinct. And there's also the Mediterranean monk seal in Europe, which are also really struggling. But Hawaiian monk seals are still very, very limited population. There's only 1,600 monk seals, Hawaiian monk seals. And that's actually up a little bit in more recent years, where the population was down to only 1,100 or so not that long ago. And these seals are just like any seal or sea lion, they're important predators for within the ecosystem. So they have a really important role in the natural ecology and biology of the Hawaiian Islands. And this is both in the main islands and way up north in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. So because these animals are so endangered, they're very much protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act and the Endangered Species Act. And we work very closely with our partners to look after them, to care for them in our rehabilitation hospital, which we opened 10 years ago, to respond to animals that are in distress on the beach that might be suffering from being hooked, and even just to reach out to the local public there, and also a lot of visitors, because Hawaii gets a lot of visitors who may never have seen monk seals before, to tell them more about these animals and why we should care about them. So it's all really a fascinating way to get the word out about these amazing species that we look after here at the Marine Mammal Center.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing their story. It's great to hear that they're so resilient. And I know that while no longer an endangered species, we do also get to care for those northern elephant seals. Do you mind sharing their success story with these laws?
Yeah, so they have an incredible northern elephant seals are one of only two species of elephant seals in the world. And like some other species, they were hunted into, they were thought to be actually extinct at one point. They were hunted into extinction because they are so big and have so much blubber and oil. So they were really highly prized. Um, and somehow, magically, a very small population, maybe 50 or so seals, somehow managed to survive on this island off the coast of Mexico called Guadalupe Island. And the entire population of northern elephant seals, which now numbers around 200,000 ish, give or take a little bit, has owes their thanks to that small population and the protections that were put into place for these animals. And you can see there's a cute little, very adorable little elephant seal pup enjoying some milk from his mom. So we take care of many elephant seals every year, and while the population has recovered, they had what we call a genetic bottleneck. So they're very similar to each other. And because genetically, and because of that similarity genetically, they are potentially at risk of certain diseases that might still take a real high toll on the population. So even though they seem to be in good shape, we're always very mindful that something could happen that could take out a really large number of them.
Thank you. And I know that we have spent some time talking about not otters. So, just briefly to bring it back to otters, I think it's really important to talk about the fact that they also have gone through a bit of a genetic bottleneck. So, each and every single one of them is critical to the recovery of that entire species. So, that's where these laws and these federal protections really come in handy and are really important. So, I know that these very important laws for these species and our shared environment together are currently under a little bit of some proposal for some changes. Can you talk a little bit about some of those changes that are currently being proposed?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the critical hallmarks of these laws were to provide not just protection for the animals themselves, but for the environment in which they live. So these animals cannot do well if they are just out there. You might not be able to injure one directly, but they can't survive without a healthy and thriving habitat to do that. And so the current proposed changes to the Endangered Species Act and the Marine Mammal Protection Act would actually strip away those protections that protect their environment, not just the individual animals or the population of animals. That means that people could go out and drill or fish or do a whole lot of other activities, create a lot of noise. All of these things are really disruptive for these animals. These animals need a healthy, thriving environment in which to rest, in which to find food, and in which to help take care of the environment that we also enjoy, because sea otters are really critical for a healthy coastal habitat that we also love. So these changes would be really detrimental to the species. It would really take the emphasis out of these critical laws. And habitat loss is actually the leading cause of extinction of different marine mammals like this. So these crucial conservation safeguards would just be removed, and the animals would suffer as a result greatly. And that's the kind of thing that could actually render these laws impotent, basically. They may not be effective at all if we don't continue to protect the environment that they live in. So mentioned earlier that sea otters have, their population improved a little bit. The southern sea otter population, we're up to about 3,000, but they're not expanding. That's been plateaued for years, for over a decade now. They've not been able to continue growing past 3,000 animals. And that's really problematic. In a healthier, better world and environment, we would see that population continue to grow. And they would reap the benefits, but so would we, because they provide critical protections for our coastlines. So yeah, these are really big proposals. Yes, to reauthorize, but also the rollbacks would really decimate the protections that we have put into place for these animals, and who have responded in most cases very well to those protections.
Wow, it is really heartbreaking to hear that these animals might be under a risk of greater threat in the near future. So before we get to the audience questions, so audience, make sure that if you've got questions, feel free to put them in the chat so that we can answer them at the end. And I know that this sounds bleak, but there is still hope. And I want everybody to know that is watching this, that there is plenty that we can do. We have the power to help. So Dr. Cara, can you share with our audience members how they can help sea otters and other vulnerable marine mammals?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest threats to sea otters and some of these other species, unfortunately, is people. Not just directly, but through pollution and environmental contamination. But on the good side, we may be one of the biggest threats, but we are also their biggest champions. We give them a voice. We can be their advocates. And every single person can be part of that. You can make your opinions known. We don't want to weaken the Endangered Species Act and the Marine Mammal Protection Act. We want them to stay as they are so that all of us can continue to enjoy these animals, and your children and future generations will too. So you can call your US representatives in Congress and in the Senate and anywhere else and let them know that you want them to stand up for sea otters and other marine mammals and vulnerable wildlife, endangered species across the board. Become active. It doesn't have to be super active, but communicating why this is important, why you care, and your representatives are supposed to represent what we all care about. And then additionally, you can support places like the Marine Mammal Center that respond to these little sea otters that are in trouble when they get sick or injured. Donate, volunteer, even just do a beach cleanup. Anything like that can also help these animals. But really at this point, because those federal laws are so threatened, that is the biggest thing that you can do is contact your representatives and let them know that you want these protections to stay in place as is.
Thank you so much for those last moments of really big things that we can do that make a huge difference. Now, as a reminder for everybody, we are going to be putting the link to the stakeholder survey in the video description, as well as in the comments. So that's another great way that you can help out otters and really have your voice heard as well. It can also be found at seaottersavvy.org. But we did want to take a moment to answer some of those questions from you all watching at home. So if you haven't already, please go ahead and put any questions you have in the comments, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. So let's see if we've got any questions popping up so far. All right. So it looks like Karen asked a question that says, I read recently that the Elkhorn Slough was at carrying capacity for otters. Is this true? And can you talk about plans to establish them at historical sites?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Yes, Elkhorn Slough is right smack in the middle of Monterey Bay, and it's a beautiful little estuary system that has actually been transformed by sea otters in a good way, who have actually, because they have the population there has been increasing, they're providing protection and helping restore that estuary. So we're getting a lot more seagrass. There's less erosion of that coastal area. And the otters are helping return that entire habitat, which is just one seemingly small area back into a very healthy, thriving area. But yes, they're over 100 sea otters there now, and that is about as many as that environment will probably safely and appropriately support. So we need otters to continue to do this incredible work that they do. It feels a little bit bad, like, hey, those otters can do all the work for us, but actually not. I mean, they love it. It's it's natural for them. It's what they love to do. They even eat invasive species like invasive crabs and all of those things that may have accidentally altered that ecosystem. So again, Elkhorn Slough is a great success story of how sea otters have really transformed an entire area. And now that that's it, kind of where it's maxed out, certainly other areas that could benefit from sea otters and their presence and the good effects that they have are being looked at. So the efforts to reintroduce sea otters into parts of the coast where they used to live but unfortunately have no longer live, is being really closely looked at by many of our partners, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Defenders of Wildlife. The Alaka Alliance in Oregon has also done an amazing feasibility study. And there's general agreement that there are some places that would be really great, that are really kind of ideal habitats to reintroduce otters. So without going deeply into all the planning and all of that around that, please do understand and know that that effort is very much underway, to educate people about the benefits, and figure out where we would get otters to repopulate these areas and what that kind of thing would look like.
I love that. And as a reminder, that Sea Otter Savvy link that we're sharing also will teach you a little bit more about what reintroduction could look like. So you can really have your voice heard in that process as well. Since we have so many of our amazing partners that you just mentioned that are also working with us on Sea Otter Awareness Week, which is really special. All right, let's see if we've got any other questions in here. We have a question here from Pahawa. You mentioned safeguards are in danger of being removed. Can you elaborate on what those safeguards are in those federal protections?
Absolutely. So the biggest impact change is in the definition of the word harm. And the changes would remove the word harm from habitat. So if these proposed changes are enacted, these conservation safeguards for the animal's habitat would be removed. So that means the animals technically still wouldn't be directly hurt or killed, but if they have no safe and thriving environment to live in, they're going to be hurt and killed because they don't have a safe place to exist. So that's really the crux of the issue. And it may have sounded good because there are a lot of folks that think that these animals the protections that are in place for them are too extreme. But that's actually not really the case. This was really well thought out legislation, the Marine Mammal Protection Act and Endangered Species Act, with the understanding that the habitat is critical for these animals' survival. So that's really, it would be much, much easier to destroy the entire habitat. And even though the individual animals theoretically wouldn't be harmed, they would be, because they would simply not have a safe place to exist.
Thank you for sharing about those safeguards that are currently under threat with these proposed changes. I know that it's also thinking about removing some of those incentives to reduce threats like entanglements, vessel strikes, and offshore drilling, which you'd mentioned a little bit earlier as well. So stripping away those vital safeguards removes those protections that have been crucial to their survival. Now, I
Yes,
think oh, sorry.
oh no, that's okay. We can see just how positive some of these changes have been, because things like reducing entanglements, most people don't want to harm wildlife and marine animals. And so there's a lot of voluntary, in addition to legal efforts to reduce risk of entanglements, reduce the risk of vessel strikes, and really protect these animals and let them thrive. But without those protections, without those incentives in place, there will inevitably be destruction of all this progress that we've made. And that is really going to impact these animals' survival.
Thank you so, so much. I think we've got time for one last question here. This is from Naomi. I heard recently that a kelp forest was saved by volunteer divers smashing sea urchins in the area. Was the sea urchin overpopulation caused by a lack of otters?
That is a wonderful question, because we do use sea urchin overgrowth as an example of why sea otters not being in an area can be so destructive, because those urchins can just get out of control and they kind of like mow down entire kelp forests basically by overgrazing. And it's not just the otter's habitat. There's so many other animals, all kinds of fish and invertebrates that also thrive and rely on healthy kelp forests. So by the urchins raising those to the ground, you destroy that habitat for many, many other species. And without the kelp forest there to help protect the coastline, you get even more erosion of the coastal zone. And that's something that we all love. We love our coasts. So, yes, so smashing urchins in areas that they overgrow is basically doing the work that otters would do if they were there naturally. So, definitely, it's great that humans went out and were caring for that local environment. But gosh, we're not very good at it compared to the sea otters who would be out there doing that and helping keep it in balance on a daily and really near hourly basis.
Amazing. Well, again, thank you so much. And please continue to post your questions if you have them. We'll make sure to answer as many as we can. And I could spend all day picking your brain about the protections for these little but very fierce top predators of these marine mammals. But we are at time. So I do want to take a little moment to thank Dr. Cara. Thank you so, so much for coming and being here with us today to share your expertise around these laws and your work with these amazing southern sea otters. And I do also want to thank Heather Barrett and Sea Otter Savvy for putting together such a fabulous lineup of events for Sea Otter Awareness Week. Now, remember that you can take the stakeholder survey and to make sure that your voice is heard, and join us for our next Sea Otter Awareness Week event later this evening at 6 o'clock Pacific time. We'll put the link to the schedule of events and that survey in the comments, as well as there is that QR code up on the screen right now. I hope you all have an utterly possum week, and thank you so, so much for your help today and for coming to learn a little bit more about how we can care for these amazing sea otters.